Two families, same era, same country. One had more money than the U.S. Treasury. One is still building wealth 7 generations later. I'm going to take you through the real story for both families. In this video, the most important one I've ever made. At their peak, the Vanderbilts had more money than the United States Treasury. Let me say that again. More money than the U.S. government. 10 mansions in Manhattan, oceanfront estates, Great Gatsby level parties. They were the most talked about family in America. The wealthiest dynasty this country has ever seen. And 54 years after Cornelius Vanderbilt died, the first Vanderbilt died broke. Within 2 generations after that, the wealth was essentially gone. The mansion sold off, the estates turned into museums, and one of the greatest fortunes in human history completely destroyed. Now here's what most people don't know. In the same era, another family building wealth in a completely different way, the Rockefellers. And 7 generations later, 7, the Rockefeller family is still one of the most powerful and wealthy families on the planet. Same country, same era, completely different outcomes. Here's why this matters for you as a business owner. The difference between these 2 families had almost nothing to do with how much money they made. It had everything to do with what they did with it. The systems they built or didn't build all around their wealth. And the mistakes the Vanderbilts made? Business owners are making them every single day. Right now, today. In this video, I'm going to take you through the real story for both families. And after every single history lesson, I'm going to show you exactly what it means for your business and your family right now. I'm Norm Westervelt, the Chief Executive Officer of Wealth Factory. We've spent years helping business owners build the infrastructure that turns what they earn into something that really lasts. And this video might be the most important one I've ever made. So let's get into it. Here's the belief that is silently destroying most business owners. They believe that if they just keep building, keep growing revenue, keep scaling, keep earning more, the wealth will take care of itself. The success in business automatically translates into generational wealth. The Vanderbilts are proof it doesn't. Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs in American history, he started with nothing, built a shipping empire from scratch, then pivoted into railroads at exactly the right time and became the richest man in America. He didn't inherit his wealth, he built it. Through decades of sharp decisions, relentless work, and real business genius. And he left behind more money than the U.S. Treasury. But here's what Cornelius never did. He never built the system to protect and perpetuate what he earned. He was world-class at making money, but had no infrastructure for keeping it. Cornelius told his family to keep the money together, but he never put it in writing. He never spelled it out legally. He never built a structure to enforce it. He just handed it over to his eldest son and hoped for the best. How many business owners have a plan in their head, but nothing is documented? Nothing is legally protected, and nothing structured to survive without them. You know what you want to happen when you're gone, but if it only exists in your head, it doesn't exist at all. The Vanderbilts prove that good intentions without legal infrastructure are worth nothing. Your business plan means nothing if your wealth plan doesn't exist. The lesson here isn't that Cornelius failed. He succeeded spectacularly at building wealth. The lesson is that building wealth and keeping wealth are two completely different skills. And most business owners only ever learn the first one. Now, Cornelius' son, William Henry, actually did a remarkable thing. He doubled the estate in 9 years. He was a phenomenal steward at what he inherited. But what happened after William Henry died is where the story gets brutal. And it's where the business lesson gets even more important. William Henry Vanderbilt doubled the estate in 9 years. That's extraordinary. But when William Henry died, it was the last time the Vanderbilt fortune ever grew. From that point forward, it only went one direction, down. The heirs bought 10 mansions in Manhattan. They built the Breakers in Rhode Island, in one of the most extravagant estates ever constructed in America. They owned the Biltmore in North Carolina, 125,000 acres and a 150,000 square foot home. They threw parties that made the newspaper. They became wealthy socialites. Oh, they knew how to spend money. They had never been taught how to grow it. The Vanderbilt heirs were economic toddlers, handed one of the most powerful weapons in the world, generational wealth. With no instruction manual, no guardrails, and no education on how to steward it. This is happening in business families right now. The founder works 30 years building something extraordinary, and then, either through inheritance or just proximity to wealth, the next generation receives the money they didn't earn and have no framework at all on how to manage it. No financial education, no family constitution, no structure that rewards stewardship over consumption. You can build the greatest business in the world and have it destroyed in one generation by heirs who are never prepared to receive it. Giving your kids money without giving them financial wisdom is exactly what happened to the Vanderbilts. And that's not a gift. It's a burden they're not equipped to carry. Now here's where the estate tax piece makes it even more devastating. Every time a Vanderbilt died, there was no trust to protect the assets, which meant the government got to take its cut first, before the heirs got anything. At certain points in history, estate taxes hit 55% of everything above a threshold. Imagine building a $100 million estate and having $55 million evaporate before your family sees $1 of it. That happens to families like the Vanderbilts over and over again. No trust meant no protection. Every Vanderbilt death was a wealth destruction event, not just emotionally, but financially and legally. Right now in the United States, you can pass on up to $30 million of estate tax-free if structured correctly. Above that, you're looking at 40% or more going to the government. But here's the thing, the $30 million exemption, it isn't permanent. It can change with legislation, and if you die at the wrong time without the right structure, the government becomes your largest heir. Basic revocable trust, which costs around $2,500 to set up, is the difference between your wealth passing privately and efficiently to your family, and your family spending years in probate court with the government takes its share. This is not optional for a business owner. This is the foundation. So that's the Vanderbilt story. More money than the U.S. Treasury, gone in 2 generations. No trust, no insurance, no system, just brilliant earning, followed by catastrophic structural failure. Now let's look at what the Rockefellers did differently, because every single decision they made is a direct answer to every mistake the Vanderbilts made. John D. Rockefeller built his fortune in oil. Like Cornelius Vanderbilt, he was a generational talent at building wealth. But unlike Vanderbilt, Rockefeller understood something that changed everything. Earning the money is just the beginning. The real work was building the system to protect it, to grow it, and to pass it on. The Rockefeller philosophy can be summed up in 4 words: own nothing, control everything. The Rockefellers didn't own their assets personally. The trust owned the assets, which meant creditors couldn't touch them, lawsuits couldn't reach them, estate taxes couldn't gut them, and heirs couldn't blow them up. The trust owned everything. The Rockefellers controlled everything. This is the most powerful legal shift a business owner can make, and most never make it. Right now, if someone sues you personally and wins, they can come after your personal assets, your savings, your home, your investments. But if these assets are owned by a properly structured, irrevocable trust, they're protected. Arm's length, outside your estate. This is the own nothing, control everything philosophy that the Rockefellers used. And it's available to every business owner who takes the time to set it up. The question isn't whether you can afford to do this. The question is whether you can afford not to do it. Now, the trust is just the container. What the Rockefellers put inside it is what made it truly perpetual. The trust protected wealth, but here's what most people miss. The trust alone doesn't grow wealth. It doesn't replenish it when markets go down. It doesn't replace what's lost when a business fails or had a bad year. For that, the Rockefellers had a second tool. And this is one that almost is never talked about outside of the wealthiest families in the world. No matter how well you build your wealth, life is unpredictable. Businesses fail, markets crash, taxes change. Inflation erodes purchasing power. Bad years happen, and if your family wealth has no shock absorber, no contingency layer, one bad sequence of events can start a collapse that's impossible to stop. The Vanderbilts had no shock absorber. Every hit was permanent. The Rockefellers built one. They called it the family bank. Here's how it works. Every single Rockefeller born into the family within 30 days of his birth received a permanent life insurance policy. Not because the Rockefellers were worried about infant mortality, but because they understood that every person born into the family was an asset to the family enterprise. And the loss of that asset at any age would be an economic loss that needed to be protected. The trust owns the policies, not the individuals. This kept the money out of the personal estates, protected from taxes, and directed back into the family bank upon the individual's death. And here's the mechanism that is the genius. Every time a Rockefeller died, the death benefit flowed back into the family trust, not to the individual heirs, to the trust, which then replenished whatever had been utilized, whether that was losses from a bad investment, an heir who needed capital to start a business, or simply the natural erosion of wealth over time from inflation and taxes. Death, which is the one guaranteed event in any family, became a wealth replenishment event instead of a wealth destruction event. The Rockefellers turned mortality into a financial strategy. Every death replenished the family bank. Every generation had liquidity. The system was designed to be stronger over time, not weaker. Think about what your business is worth today. Now think about what happens to the value if you die tomorrow without a plan, without insurance, without a trust to receive the proceeds. Your family just doesn't lose you. They lose the income you generated. They lose the business value that was tied to your relationships and expertise. They face estate taxes on whatever is left, and they have to make all these decisions at the worst possible emotional state. A correctly designed permanent life insurance policy owned by your trust, benefiting your trust, turns that catastrophic moment into the funding event for your family's next chapter. This is not morbid, it's responsible. And this is what the Rockefellers understood and the Vanderbilts did not. Now, here's the business application that almost nobody talks about. The family bank doesn't just protect against death, it creates living benefits that change how your family operates financially right now. When a Rockefeller heir needed capital to start a business, buy a home, fund an education, they didn't go to the bank. They went to the family trust. The trust financed them at below market rates. The interest they paid didn't go to a bank. It went back into the trust, which grew the family bank, which helped the next heir, which grew it further. The Rockefellers stopped paying interest to banks and started paying interest to themselves. Every mortgage payment, every business loan, every dollar of interest calculated inside the family system instead of enriching a financial institution. Right now, a third of everything most people earn in a lifetime goes to interest. Mortgage interest, car loans, business lines of credit. That money goes to the bank and it is gone forever. The family bank concept redirects that flow. Your heirs pay interest to the trust. The trust grows, the next generation gets better terms than they would from any bank, and the cycle compounds. Not for the bank's benefits, but for your family's. When inflation pushes home prices up and interest rate makes mortgages unaffordable, the families with a family bank can offer their heirs below market financing, skip the PMI, skip the loan origination fees, and close in days instead of 30. This is a generational competitive advantage the Vanderbilts never had and the Rockefellers always did. Now, we've covered the trust structure and the insurance mechanism, but there's one more piece of the Rockefeller system that almost never gets talked about. And it might be the most important one of all, because without it, even the best financial structure eventually falls apart. Cornelius Vanderbilt told his family, "Keep the money together." These words died with him, because words without structure are just wishes. The Rockefellers didn't leave behind wishes, they left behind a family constitution. A family constitution is the preamble to the trust. It is the document that captures not just the legal mechanisms of how the wealth gets distributed, but the why behind it all, the values, the philosophies, the principles, the expectation, the rules of engagement for every generation that comes after you. It answered questions like, what do we stand for as a family? How do we support heirs who want to start businesses without handing them the money? What are the rules around home financing through the trust? When does their heir qualify to borrow from the family bank? What happens if they default? What educational pursuits will the trust fund? What will it not fund? The family constitution turned the Rockefeller wealth philosophy into a living document, not dependent on any one person's memory, not subject to interpretation, spelled out, permanent and governing. The Rockefellers built a family culture around wealth stewardship. Every generation was taught the same values, the same principles, the same philosophy. Wealth wasn't just inherited, it was earned through demonstrating you understood what the family stood for. Think about the best businesses you own. They have a culture, they have a set of values that every employee understands. Standard operating procedures that ensure consistency regardless of who's in the room. A mission that outlasts any individual. The Rockefellers built that for their family, not just their businesses. Now here's what's extraordinary. When business owners go through the process of building a family constitution, it is one of the most emotional experiences of their lives. Because for the first time, they're forced to articulate not just what they've built, but why they built it. What they want their great-grandchildren to know about who they were, what they stood for, what mattered. That document becomes the thread that holds the family together long after you're gone. So we've walked through both families completely now. And what I want to do before we close is to give you the clearest possible picture of where you stand today and the one decision that determines which path your family is on. Here's the honest question I want you to sit with. Right now, today, which family does your financial life look like more? The Vanderbilts, brilliant and earning, working incredibly hard, building real revenue, but operating without a trust, without a coordinated financial structure, without insurance designed to replenish rather than just protect, without a family constitution that turns your values into a lasting document, without a plan that survives you. Or the Rockefellers, earning and building the system simultaneously, treating every heir as an asset worth protecting, using trust to own everything, using permanent life insurance to make death a replenishment event instead of a destruction event, paying interest to themselves instead of to banks, and leaving behind not just money, but a constitution, a culture, a blueprint for the next 7 generations. Most business owners, if they're honest, look more like the Vanderbilts right now. Not because they're failing, but because they're succeeding. And they've put 100% of their energy into the earning side of the equation and 0 into the infrastructure side. The Vanderbilts prove that's not a sustainable strategy. The greatest fortune in American history was destroyed, not by bad luck, not by market crashes, not by enemies. It was destroyed by the absence of a system. The Vanderbilts lost not because they failed, but because they never built the infrastructure to protect what they had already won. You are 1 generation away from either becoming the Rockefellers or the Vanderbilts. The difference isn't how much you earn, it's whether you built the system. And the system doesn't require $1 billion to start. It requires a trust, a correctly designed insurance policy, and a coordinated financial team, and a family constitution. 4 things. That's the whole blueprint. The Rockefellers used all 4. The Vanderbilts used none. 7 generations later, only one of these families is still building wealth. Now, let's bring this all the way home. 2 families, same era, same country. One had more money than the U.S. Treasury. One is still building wealth 7 generations later. The difference wasn't talent. The Vanderbilts were extraordinary. The difference wasn't work ethic. Cornelius Vanderbilt built an empire from nothing. The difference was the system. Here's what we covered today. Earning wealth and keeping wealth are 2 completely different skills. Most business owners only learn the first one. Heirs who receive money without financial wisdom don't get a gift, they get a burden. And without a structure that rewards stewardship, that burden destroys fortunes. The trust is the foundation. Own nothing, but control everything. Protect your assets from taxes, lawsuits, and heirs who aren't ready for it. Permanent life insurance, designed correctly and owned by the trust, turns death into a replenishment event. It builds the family bank that finances your heirs instead of enriching a bank. The family bank redirects interest payments from financial institutions back into your family trust, compounding wealth internally instead of externally. And the family constitution turns your values into a living document. It's the thread that holds the family together long after you're gone. The Vanderbilts had money, the Rockefellers had the system, and the system wins every single time. If you want the complete blueprint, everything we've covered today, laid out step by step, it's all inside our book, What Would Billionaires Do? It walks you through the full Rockefeller method in a way you can actually start implementing right now. The link is in the description, and if you're ready to stop being like the Vanderbilts and start building like the Rockefellers, reach out to our team at Wealth Factory. We'll show you exactly what your version of this system looks like. Leave a comment below and tell me, which part of the Rockefeller system are you missing right now? And we will see you on the next one.